So here we are, this Saturday morning show. We're going to be talking about this morning about autumn KERB appeal. But the sounds of it, you wouldn't think it's going to be autumn outside, because it's certainly not like that in the last couple of days anyway, put it that way. But this is all about top seasonal tips for dazzling photographs and also first impressions. We talk about this so many times, Richard, don't we, about the first impressions?
Yeah, KERB appeal is just paramount when you're looking at a property. The first impression you get from standing outside, looking at it, whether it's the garden, whether it's the house's presentation itself, even how, if it's in the autumn time and into the winter, with the lights on and the warm feeling, and there's a lot of things that combine to give you that KERB appeal.
Yeah. And it's so important when it comes to sales and also when it comes to lettings when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because, if you're trying to rent a house, nobody's going to take it if it looks like the back of beyond.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just sales, it is for lettings as well. I know obviously sales listings differ slightly from what we do in lettings, but KERB appeal and how the property is presented is really important.
But you've got to admit, though, there's something special about autumn. It is really the season of magic and mayhem for selling your home. You have things like, on one hand, it's the light. The light is lovely at this time of year overall. And then when the sun hits the golden brown, yellow leaves on the trees, they take that golden glow. And it gives you photographs that sort of shimmering look.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the weather can play havoc with the front of house presentations, the prospects of overflowing gutters.
Yeah.
Because it's like everything comes off the trees, especially where I am. I'm right next to a glen. So literally everything gets blown off the trees into the gutters. And then the next minute, you get a torrential rain and everything is just pouring all over the driveway and everything. It's not the greatest impression to have, especially when you're selling. This is why a lot of people actually, I suppose, say, oh, I'll wait till spring or I'll wait till summer. But it could be a totally different market by next year, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And at summertime and that, you get some amazing listing pictures in the summertime, and everybody's garden's in bloom and you've got the sun high in the sky and the blue skies and things. But you're right, the autumn time, you get that low level light, and if you catch it at the right time, and all the mix of the orange and like burnt colours and things, you could really have good pictures taken. If you've got a good photographer, they'll capture that. Obviously,
we could always replace the sky, couldn't we? We could always replace the sky.
You can't always do that, but yeah, you could catch a real magical kind of feeling in a picture for listing in this time of year.
Yeah. So the littered lawns and things like that, and withering plant life becomes real, I suppose. Whether it's online or in person, the outside of your home is the first thing most buyers will actually see then. And it can generate inquiries, it can set the tone for the viewings, and it can give some confidence to offer as well overall. I think that's what's the most important thing out of this. So with that in mind, our show for this week is all about brushing up on every little corner of your autumn KERB appeal. And do you want to go over some of the topics that we're going to talk about today, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, obviously, people are going to ask the question that why KERB appeal actually matters so much. So we'll have a wee chat about that. We'll look at the garden initially, because that's what you walk through to get to the property, to meet the agent or whatever. Paths, plants, parking, the walls, the windows, and the woodwork, and like you said, the roof and the rainwater goods, and obviously gutters and things get blocked at this time of year. And focusing on your front door, as I said, you lead up to that front door. Is your front door, is it nicely fresh paint? Is it, is it flaking? Is it weathered? You need to look at that as well. So they're all things we're going to talk about today.
It's no easy to paint at this time of year, though, is it? With the temperature, because
often,
even though it's a great day, the humidity might not be right. Therefore, the paint might not actually dry as good as it can be. And then the rain comes along, and then it causes a problem after that. So really, it's all about getting the timing right. But importantly, it shouldn't put people off selling their house in this period of the year. I often say that this is possibly one of the best times, and I mean, I say it every time, don't I? This is the best time of year to sell your house.
I think if you capitalise on the right elements of that time of year, it can be the right time to sell.
Hit the nail on the head. I think that's what it is.
If you're planning to sell your home in the autumn, then if you're listening today, you're in exactly the right place to get your KERB appeal on point as a magnet to attract the best buyers.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let me just recap about that. So we often say, you know, people do say spring, summer, all the rest of it. I'll wait till then. It could be a completely different market then, and the marginal gains you'll get from waiting will probably be far outweighed by the benefit of putting your house on the market now and getting certainty and getting the price you want. After all, 6 months' time, it could be a completely different market, and it probably will be more than likely. Will it be a boom market? Will it be a stable market? Will it be a declining market? You never know. And if you can't take that risk, and you need a better certainty now, then probably now is the time to do it for you. But then it's all about, I suppose, getting the best advice from your estate agent at that point in time and taking them round. This is what I keep saying to people every single time, Richard. This is only born out of experience over the years when people actually call me out. I get people call them out to listen, you know, to value their house, and they're often at the stage where they've got everything they think is perfect and ready to go. And they've spent an absolute fortune on it. And I'm talking about a fortune as in tens of thousands of pounds to do it. And then I don't have the heart to tell them sometimes. It's like, you didn't really need to do that. It wasn't absolutely necessary. You've probably just cost yourself about 15 or 20,000 pounds. And see where the added value is in doing and getting someone out beforehand and actually advising them. This is where I often go out to people and they go, you know, they'll say to you, and then I'm talking traditionally to the people about the cheap fee people. You know, I just want the cheapest fee possible. But you don't realise the advice and expertise you're often getting from your estate agent far outweighs even the fee that you're going to pay them, because it's almost covered in the fact that what they've done and the advice they've given you there and then. And people treat that, I'm not sure if they actually give it the respect they should give it, because it's often down to the fact that if you get it for free, you don't really value it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me, Yeah, I think you're totally right. And if your agent knows what they're doing and knows how to properly market your property and advise you, and they're very knowledgeable about the market and ultimately achieve you an amazing price point at the end for selling, then they're worth their weight in gold.
And then the other one is as well, is what happens if you do wait till next year and it doesn't go according to plan. That's why I often say to people, look, put your house in the market now and manage the sale. I actually noticed this morning, there's a guy that put his house on with another estate agent. That's fine. That's his choice. That's entirely up to him. But he's actually, him and his partner are in somebody else's house, and they've been in there for about 3 months, living at their house. Look, still waiting on a place coming up. And I'm like, what? Why did your estate agent not manage that sale? Why did your estate agent not get a buyer to come along to agree to the right circumstances that allowed you to then find your place and to everything to coincide in the chain? And not, they're just like, yeah, okay, you'll just have to move out. It's but where'd I go? Well, it's your problem.
So and left them in limbo, basically,
literally just leaving people homeless. An estate agent leaving people homeless. That's weird.
Ironic.
But essentially, that's what they're doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then as well as the restriction and supply of rental accommodation, that's, you know, it's difficult to even get that. You know yourself how difficult it is now for people to get. How many people are actually chasing one tenancy at a time, one property?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, the amount of inquiries, and people get frustrated so much because they feel like they're being passed over or not getting considered correctly, and it's like it's not humanly possible for us to actually go through the amount of inquiries. And full circle, do you know what I mean? Everybody gets touched base with as much as they can, but we just, like, only one person could go on one property, or one family could, do you know what I mean? And we've got, I mean, there was at one point we had 90 inquiries in one day.
90?
Yeah, well,
one property.
Or one property.
And it's practically impossible to get back to everybody, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was
earlier in the year. To say, I'm sorry, you're unsuccessful. It's like, okay, you know, you're unsuccessful. But if you don't get back to somebody, it's like they take a grievance. It's like, oh, you're leaving me out of this. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because you could essentially be just employing one person full time just to get back to people to tell them they were unsuccessful.
Oh, yeah, definitely I could.
That's no cost effective, is it?
No, definitely not. And I mean, things are demand is still really busy in the lettings market, but it was even worse, or even busier, should I say, earlier in the year. I'll not use the word worst, but it was busier.
You're picking up on our wealth creation.
As soon as I say that, yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much. Let's talk about KERB appeal. So why would KERB appeal matter so much? Well, as we say every single time, this is all about first impressions are formed within, seconds, I suppose. People used to say that, first 3 seconds, but nowadays it's almost like the first 0.3 of a second. As people are formulating their judgment straight away before you've even got anything done, as soon as they see something. And often what happens every single time is when a property gets listed, some people just don't inquire. They go and drive round to the property, they look for this for sale board, and then they find the property as a result of that. So that's why it's important to have a for sale board up. But then they find the property as a result of that, then they look for themselves before they even inquire at all. Now, as an estate agent, how on earth are you supposed to capture somebody's details with that? Because it's practically impossible to do that. So that's the difficulty. So KERB appeal is everything. One study found actually that 93% of buyers pass judgment on a property from its outside appearance. So your KERB appeal definitely matters in this whole thing, in spades actually, when you look at it.
You know what it makes me think of? It makes me think of, think of somebody scrolling through Rightmove or even your own website if you're an agent and things, or think of yourself if you're looking for a home. You swipe through, you're looking at that lead image, and if it doesn't catch your attention, you're swiping right past that. It's a bit like a dating app. Not that I use dating apps or have to use.
The lead image counts every single time, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And they're swiped off the screen within seconds if that doesn't have that KERB appeal to you. So yeah, I think really the front of your home comes in for a lot of scrutiny from potential buyers, and arguably more than any other of the rooms and things inside. I know people are really driven by kitchens and bathrooms and these certain areas of the home, but if you've not got that KERB appeal in that first image right, then they will obviously swipe right past that or just move on to the next one.
And I've seen people turn up, and even for a viewing, I've actually seen people turn up prior to the viewing. Then they've turned round, they've phoned back in and says, "Look, we've decided we're no going." And I'm like, "But you've not even seen the house. It's absolutely gorgeous."
Yeah, I've had that before.
And then they've gone, "But we drove past." What? Sorry, you drove past and made a full assessment about what the property is like based on the drive-by. That's unbelievable when you think about it. So that just shows me the definite power of actually making sure that you've got KERB appeal. Arguably, it's more than any other room, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it's difficult. It can be difficult sometimes, and especially in areas where properties could be deceptive from outside. I mean, you know, Jim, you could walk into this small doorway with a window, and you walk into this labyrinth of a property with amazing views at the back and things.
Goes all the way back.
Yeah.
So you just see this tiny wee terrace building, but you don't realise it goes back for about 3 stories. And then they've developed upstairs into the attic or something like that. That's quite classic for the East Nuke. That's quite classic.
That's the area I was thinking of when I said that. Yeah.
I mean, buyers actually visit properties in many different ways, including initial drive-bys, as I'd said, arranging for the viewings, chatting outside when they leave, especially with neighbours. So, make sure you're on side with your neighbours, definitely, because that could often make or break it when people talk to neighbours. They often as well return for a second look. Now, I don't know about you, but I get the experience of getting the first impression when I walk in the doors as an estate agent. And the reason for that is because I'm seeing the property for the first time. So often the seller will say to me when they're taking me around, it's like, "Oh, well, you see this and you see that's wrong and this is wrong, and will I do this and will I do that?" And I'm like, I don't see any of that at all when I'm walking around. A buyer will not notice these niggly things either. And I'm talking about things like maybe a chip in the woodwork, maybe a loose handle on the door. These sort of things. I mean, they could be easily repaired or they could be easily sorted. But it's often we get to a point where we're so again, we're coming back to marginal gains, aren't we? It's the perfection thing. It's like everything has to be a showroom condition. No, it doesn't. Because I'll guarantee you, most people come in and put their own stamp on it. So you've just decorated your whole house. Somebody just go do it right in the back of you.
Yeah, I think as long as things are, like I was Fillet inside as well, and it's like as long as things are fit for purpose, it's clean, do you know what I mean? It's fresh, and all those wee niggly points that really don't matter too much, you just fixated on them so much because you lived with them and you know they're there because maybe, do you know what I mean, you caused them or something. So you need to kind of have that and it's good to have an agent to come in and give you that outside opinion.
Yeah, and they will drive by now and again, checking the location at another time of day, because that's often what the helpful tips is from most estate agents, even like ourselves. Despite the saying telling us not to, people do judge a book by its cover.
Definitely.
Every single time. Every single time, I guarantee you, when you're out and about, you're possibly judging a book by its cover. How many times do you sit in the pub and people watch?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes my case.
everybody does that, and whether it's people or whether it's houses, or do you know anything, you do judge things by your initial, by that initial image and what you perceive it to be like.
So you may as well encourage that then by making your home irresistible from the front, and just making it wow. And in short, think about the KERB appeal as a poster for a movie. It's the teaser trailer. I mean, when we do a pre-portal or we do a personal property tour, the first thing you see is the front of the house.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't catch your imagination, you'll probably find that most people will not continue to watch the video tour after that, because it's maybe run down and it maybe doesn't suit their criteria straight away. So off the bat, when you're doing a video, you need to capture somebody's attention and actually get them anchored in right away. Just like,
and you need to do that within seconds as well. Yeah.
Yeah, just like with fishing, that's literally what you're having to do with video, and literally what you have to do with your KERB appeal as well. You're getting somebody to click through from a website based on one photograph for most agents. I know we do feature property, we do premium listings, we have multiple photographs on the front that attracts a bigger audience to click through and click in. But most estate agents don't have these tools that they're making, because they cost money. It's a big investment to get them. So they'll just opt for the one photograph, determines everything. One photograph, that's quite frightening when you think about it. One photograph will determine, when somebody's scrolling through on their phone, one photograph will determine whether they actually just scroll right past. Imagine if you get a video, though. It goes, welcome, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's this person saying?
Yeah.
Different, eh? That's how video is so important.
Also, we referenced, I mean, the East Nuke's quite common for this, because the actual front of the property isn't really much, but the rear of the property is spectacular. And you can lead with the rear. But I think we talk about KERB appeal from the front, and predominantly that's what will be on a listing. And I mentioned when we started about the paths and the plants and the parking at the front. Do you know, so with the days getting shorter and things as autumn and then into winter approaches, it's really easy to miss what autumn's toll, especially in this weather that we've been having, has on your front garden. And particularly when, you know, people are rushing about to work and to school run, and you kind of forget about it. But you have to remember, when buyers are coming to your front door, they're going to pick up on your front garden and that lead up to your front door. So it really pays to keep it in check.
I definitely think so. I mean, if you've got a driveway, for example, then jet wash it, for goodness sake. If it takes years off the age of the drive, and you might have just got it jet washed, a couple of months ago, or maybe even a year ago. But who was it I was talking to the other day? Oh, the lawn. They said about the lawn, we've put an artificial lawn down, and we thought that would really do the job. But they lived right next to all these trees, and almost a glen next door to them, a countryside location. And literally within a couple of months, the whole artificial lawn was covered in moss.
I see.
So it's easy to quickly do that, just to clean it down and keep it maintained. Also, there's things like roofs as well, just to make sure it's just clean and tidy. As we'd said before, it is just literally just clearing all the leaves up and just making it so it's not. And you've got the typical example about, I don't know about you, but I've got certain areas in my house where all the leaves just pile into it.
You've got a lot more trees around you.
I tell me about it.
You're right though, because driveways and parking spaces and
a house can be snowed under a pile of leaves at the end of it if I left it, I'll tell you.
Yeah. But yeah, driveways and parking spaces and things are such a big selling point. And if you could really showcase them for what they are and how many cars can actually get it, and if they're clean and tidy, and like you say, you remove all the moss for the stone and the pathways and make them less slippery and more visible, and trim everything back, so there's no straggly grass and foliage hanging over pathways and driveways. It just makes it all that much better, and it really does give it a better.
You don't want it too sterile, though, don't you? You want it crisp, but you can soften it up by putting, seasonal planters around the house. just so people know that, you know, you've got the classics like the Hollies. Know the group, by the way. The Hollies singing a song. I just have that image of the Hollies singing a song, standing at the front of the drive. No, your Hollybush and stuff like that. The seasonal stuff, it's always there. Your typical conifers, it lasts all year round. I mean, a bit of green, the evergreen thing. That's what it is. If people can see a bit of evergreen, it just returns them back to nature, I suppose, and that sort of that relaxed feeling overall. So it takes the edges off it being a bit sterile when you do it, because it's completely obvious that you've obviously cleaned it top to bottom if it does look like that. So you could kind of make it almost like you continually maintain it, but it's not just done for that purpose, I suppose, by doing these things. We talked about leaves. It's like, geez, it's a never-ending thing now. You're continually raking up leaves all the time and debris every single week, possibly every other day, depending on where you're living. Deadhead brown flowers and leaves, and you know. So inject a dash of autumn colour with maybe some seasonal blooms, as we said.
Yeah, you do get things for this time of year that are still in bloom, and do you know, not just your normal like evergreens and things. You do get things that still bloom at this time of year before we hit the really cold weather. So even think about incorporating them into the garden.
Like my self-proclaimed title, real estate.
I noticed that actually. I meant to say.
I was thinking, I forgot to take that off. I was just having a laugh with myself. So if you're too busy, really, you're too busy not to be able to do this, because people live busy lives, let's be honest, and simply not for the task. It's worth actually employing somebody, just a handy person to do this. Someone to keep everything tidy, for a picture perfect welcome at that time of year. Remember, it's only short term. You're going to have to do this, because at some point you'll have sold your house, and 3 or 4 months later, that's you moved out. You don't need to do it ever again. Woohoo! For some people,
a lot of people who have got bigger gardens and a bit more mature gardens and things as well, to have somebody come in seasonally every few weeks, it's quite minimal in cost compared to the amount of time it would actually take you to do it yourself. And a lot of people do it, and it's worthwhile.
It's finding out the right person. So how do we go about finding out the right people for it? I think the best place for this is social media and Facebook. Just to ask for recommendations from other people that have had handy persons. So the classic is go on and explain what jobs you're needing done. And then you'll get the right responses from, the right people getting tagged in. Everybody knows that they've used them before, but make sure it's somebody else has used. Because often you do get people saying, go and use them. And you're like, have you used them? And like, well, no. So it's not exactly a recommendation, because you've never used them. Well, how would I know they're any good? Because anybody can gloss anything up on Instagram, can't they? It's like, look what we've done. But it's like, when you go around, it's like the cementing's no done right, the pointing's no done right, but it looks all right in the photograph. So that's what I think as well. When you get recommendations on social media, it's worth, when you speak to the contractor, it's like, have you got any customers that could give recommendations as well? I think that's actually quite important. So you got anybody I could speak to, I could give them a recommendation as well, for the very fact that it's somebody you dealt with. And I'll be honest, most contractors shouldn't bat an eyelid about that. They should have somebody available to be able to give a personal recommendation, word of mouth or something like that. If they don't, then you've got to kind of think to yourself, why would they not know somebody on hand to be able to do that for you? That's a classic, like the ESTAs. We ask people to go in on the ESTAs and independently vote for us. And they also, the reviews, they get the option, whatever they want to write in the review. They can write the worst review in the world. And it's like, we've not got a chance. We can't exclude that. That'll appear live, whether we like it or not. I'm not inviting anybody that doesn't like us, by the way, to just go on. I do realise sometimes, they'll be out. You can't please people every time, all of the time. You can only please people within the people that like you, I suppose. That's the old adage. You know yourself. So the most important thing is probably get recommendations when you come to stuff like that from contractors. What about how important then is we talked about this at the beginning. You said you were wanting to talk about this. Is the walls, the windows, and the woodwork. I mean, how important it is, and the challenge you've got right now with the fact that this time of year, it's no easy to do all that stuff. Interior wise, yes. Exterior, bit more difficult because of the weather conditions.
Yeah, and it's like, as we go through this, you'll probably think, like, obviously we've started at the gate, we've come through the garden, we're up the path, now we're at the front of the house, and it's really, you'll be looking at the exterior, and it's the walls and the windows and the woodwork, and I mean, cracks and things look nice on pottery and oil paintings, but not on the front of your property. So the outside of your property really needs to look good, and to pop outside and do a bit of quick maintenance and things, and audit it to see if anything needs attention, should be something that you do regularly, and not just leading up to maybe, oh, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to now look after it. If you've got timber frame windows, you know, there might be double glazed units, but you've got timber frame windows, or you've got timber doors or things, you know, they need regular maintenance, and you should do that on a regular basis anyway, because if you go and try and remedy that at the last minute, you probably find that it may be past
a mountain to climb, eh?
Yes. So
sometimes as well, your timber's got to the point where it's maybe dried out so much, or it's damaged so much, it's beyond repair. Don't worry though, because you got a lot of good joiners that could actually take a section out of a window and actually replace it. You know, the case in point was, we had a contractor who was absolutely fantastic for our leading office, where, as everybody else said, you need the whole thing replaced. He came along and actually just said, no, I could just cut the sections out. I could piece another bit in to that wood. I can then fettle it in, and then I could just prime it. I could paint it, and it's all done. And literally, we had got a bill for estimated at £15,000, and it was 700 quid at the end of it.
Yeah, and that window is like 6x6 or something, I think it is. It's a big pain.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to get the right people to do the right jobs, and it is back again to recommendations. So the agent paintwork, as you had said, Richard, sand it down, give it a fresh coat of a weatherproofing paint. And do you get paints that sometimes you can just paint in all weathers?
I think there's ones that are obviously, rather than your typical paints, you've got ones that react quicker and set in, and you can do it so there's a shorter time frame where you need to obviously leave them in between, because obviously you've got shorter periods, and especially like what it's like been like the last few days, in between weather spells like this, you can maybe get in there and do that, and they do set quicker.
That's probably where it's more important at this time of year then, as soon as you get a dry and sunny day, or reasonable day, then just go out and make an effort. Go and do something, because it's better than nothing, because you don't know when the weather's going to recover to that good weather again, considering the time of year. So while autumn has all these beautiful colours that come out and everything else, but I think the not so good side of autumn is the temperature starts to drop.
Yeah.
and the coldness sets in. I've got my heating on.
Yeah, people
you know how I said that as if I really resented it, the fact that I've got my heating on.
Yeah, I've had mine on as well, obviously. But people also notice as well, you know, doors start to stick, and you know, if there's timber units and things, they start to expand in this type of weather. If they've not treated correctly and got the right cover on them, you'll notice that they'll stick.
Yeah, especially the front doors, eh?
Yeah,
and it often gets up through the bottom of the door, because somebody's cut the bottom of the door in the first instance. They've not actually sealed it or primed it to make sure no water ingress gets back in. Therefore, the door starts to swell. You're right. And then what happens is you then shave the door because the door's swelled, and then it fits perfect. And then when it comes to spring and summer, it dries out again and shrinks.
Yeah.
Now you've got a gaping gap where if there's a high wind one day, it comes through your door, and you're like, you're no draft proof anymore. So it probably tells us then you're better to do it right first time, and take the effort to do it. Things like windows and stuff like that, you know, clean them all down.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Cleaning windows is something that always gets overlooked. I mean, they really need cleaned thoroughly, including the glass, the framework. Consider placing lamps, or even some candles, or do you know, nowadays it's the oil burners and things. You know, set them around on ledges or where they are, just to create that kind of warm glow. And that's what it says, as you approach a property, if there's a lamp on, or do you know, candles or something, creating that nice glow. And it's that time of year, and do you know, when you've got the low sun, and do you know, it's all these wee things that add in together and create that kind of what's the word? Ambience. That's it.
The coziness as well. It's the coziness when you come in. There's nothing. I mean, could you imagine? Well, here's the classic picture. You go into the bathroom. The bath is filled with bubbles because it's a bubble bath. You've got ambient candles round about the bathroom itself. The lights are out, so it gives them that flicker up the walls all over, and it just feels nice and cozy. And that's kind of what you're trying to recreate in other rooms. I'm not saying put a bath in your living room, by the way.
No, and also that warm.
I'm in one of these rooms this morning.
But that warm kind of ambient feeling, it also can be created. You know, if you've got a log burner, if you do have an open fire, have that on.
That's a good point, eh? And even if it's not that time of year, and it's maybe really warm in your house, so it's not overpowering, just put these starter kit log burners in. So you know how you get the wee packet, you just light it. It's a lighter for a log burner, just to get it all started up. But it lasts maybe, about 15, 20 minutes in its entirety. But you put it on just before they're about to come in the door. By the time they walk into the living room, it's like, wow, I could see myself sitting here. You know, I think that's everything. Just everything for when people come in the door. Buyers often associate exterior repairs with a great expense. Remember, and also hidden problems. But many jobs are easy to fix, and the cost is more. The cost is more than covered by the faster and possibly higher selling price at the same time.
Yeah,
definitely. This brings me to this time of year, especially when we talk about roofs and rainwater goods and stuff like that. Oh, it's horrendous at this time of year, isn't it?
I mean, obviously, I know this is a sales show, but lettings at this time of year, because we look after so many rental properties, if it's rainy and windy, we know the phone's going to be ringing. So,
every single time, doesn't it? Because a friend used to say to me every single time, he used to say, look, Jim, water finds the easiest way.
Always finds
a route. You could literally have a loose slate on the top ridge of your property, and the water could end up coming down inside the property on the, in the front of the property in a completely different room from where that's over. Because it travels right down the joist, it travels right down the joist to the bottom, and then starts to drip into the room at the corner of the wall itself on the exterior. And everybody thinks it's like, oh, it's my gutters. It's like, no. It's the loose slate on the top, on the ridge, that's causing that problem. This is why I often say for roofers, and I'm not trying to tell roofers how to do their job, but I'm trying to tell roofers how to do their job. It's like, don't just assume that you know what you're doing when you look at the roof. Go inside and actually get inside the loft for a change and have a look inside the attic and see where the water's coming in and see where it's travelling to, so you know exactly that is the problem in the first place that you diagnosed without actually even looking inside.
Yeah.
That's just my wee dig at some of the roofers.
No. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the exterior of the property and the roofs and the gutters are a really big problem at this time of year. And I think with autumn, we all know that it comes with rain, and a watertight home is really priority number one. And so while there's still time to get ahead of that weather, although maybe we're already in it, but there is a kind of checklist to spot out and solve problems before it really turns into a drama, before it becomes something a lot bigger. And like you said, Jim, I mean, initially look at the roof, look for slip tiles and slates, and see if there's any flashings that have come loose, and anything else that needs repaired. It's good to do that visual check, but that's a good point, Jim. Don't just do it from outside, do it from inside as well. Gutters, obviously check the gutters and see if any of them have become blocked. Jim, you spoke about fallen leaves is a really big problem for that, or growth as well. And look for nests and things that have blown down from the trees. If you live near trees, they all get stuck in the gutters. And whether
this is probably why it's important to get these wee, the wee meshes that you put over your downpipes. You put over your downpipe, so if any dirt or leaves comes towards the downpipe and from the gutter, it actually catches them all before they go down and actually block your downpipe. Now, a classic in here is sometimes in flats, if the downpipe gets blocked, the downstairs property can actually end up flooding. Because of the backflush. Because what happened, and I've had it happen, So this was a property where upstairs, downstairs, they put their washing machine on, they went out for the day, which is what you normally do anyway. The downpipe was blocked. So what had happened was the washing machine then emptied all the water into the downpipe then filled up, but then the only way water finds a way, the quickest way for it to go was out back flush through the pipe where my downpipe was going to for my sink, and the actual water back flushed because it was that much pressure with the amount of rain going down the downpipe itself. There was that much pressure, the water back flushed and blew all into the kitchen.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a few times.
So that's why it's so important to make sure your gutters are all cleaned, because then it could cause a real problem later on. It's the old thing about prevention is better than cure, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said about the caps that you put on the downpipes and things, you also get. I've got one quite a rural property that has this, and they're like large pipe cleaners, and they run all the way along the gutters. I think it's actually predominantly for birds nesting and squirrels and things, but it also acts as it stops the leaves from gathering as well. They're really quite good.
I know what you're talking about. Like almost like, you know how you get the plastic binders on the end of your your things, and it's almost like that put in the gutter on a bigger scale. So it just the water gets through, but nothing else actually sits in the gutter. That's a good point, actually.
They're really
good point, because literally nothing will sit in the gutter. Then it'll all just blow out the gutter, but the water actually gets into it and gets away.
Yeah,
surprised not everybody does that, and I'm surprised all the house builders don't incorporate that into their model for the gutters.
I could only think of the one that's actually got that.
That is a good point, eh? I never even thought about it like that. And in fact, could you adapt? Just thinking off the top of my head, you know how you get the long hoses? Could you adapt some sort of putting holes in the hoses and actually just putting a big long thick hose sitting it in the gutter itself, so the water gets in, but no leaves actually sit in your gutter?
Yeah,
that's a good point, eh? Yeah. Okay.
You could patent that.
Aye, anybody, don't steal that idea, by the way. That's patent pending. Who's that? Pat Pending. Oh, that's Dick Dastardly in Wacky Races. Professor Pat Pending.
I remember Wacky Races. I can't remember that one.
Professor Pat Pending was one of them, one of the characters in there.
Oh, right, okay. I'll take your word for it.
It's good how they had that, Professor Pat Pending.
Right, okay.
Anyway.
Right.
So gutters become blocked, fallen leaves, nest blowing around, litter. Make sure you've whether any sections have become loose. That's another important point as well. The downpipes where it is a bit loose. You will see if you look on the outside of most properties, if they've got a problem for downpipes and that in the gutter, you'll maybe see moss gathering around joints up along the OG gardens, which are the big old cast iron gardens. So you know straight away that the joint's actually leaking, and because it's got all that moss just down below it, or the back of the downpipes where you actually see moss coming out, because often downpipes actually corrode at the back where it's done. You know yourself, there's a classic where people used to do the harling. They never used to take the downpipe off and actually do the harling behind it. They just harled right into the downpipe itself. So if that harling has a defective seal, the water just goes right into the back of there, soaks right into the brick, and you have got a damp problem. And then it also corrodes the back of the pipe, and therefore the pipe sometimes cracks and you don't know about it, and then more seeps into your property. So while you think you've got rising damp, in actual fact, it's a defective downpipe.
Yeah, and it's just the water ingressing continually, and it could be quite detrimental if it's not picked up quick enough.
So perhaps it goes without saying that for any leaks in the past, you should make good any of the stains or the damage to remove the thought. Now, this is why it's important to remove the thought in the minds of buyers that potentially could be some expensive surprises ahead.
Yeah,
that's why. So if you do have that moss on the outside, just take a wire brush and get rid of it.
Yeah, because you may have fixed something, and in your mind, a wee bit of moss, well, it's fine, but I know the problem's fixed. But visually, if a buyer comes up and spots that, they're going to say there's been a problem or there is a problem. And if they know there has been a problem, although it's fixed, they might think that's going to come back again. Do you know? And it just sets that in their mind.
It's true, eh? Absolutely true. This is where we come to the front door.
Yes.
How important is the front door? Well, I suppose it's just like a new pair of shoes. It can add that finishing touch to your outfit, or maybe a new tie. You might not have the greatest suit, but I've always been told if you get a really good quality tie, it just makes it look perfect. It just makes it look right. So just the same way a new pair of shoes can make an outfit absolutely wow. Your front door can be the icing on the cake for your KERB appeal as I suppose it's a friendly invitation for viewers to step inside.
Yeah.
What's your favourite colours? What's your favourite colours, Richard, for front doors?
For me at the moment, well, I know because I've got one. As a grey, I've got a grey front door.
I'm an Oxford blue person.
Yeah, well, I do like it. It depends on the property, I think. Do you know if you've got a period property? There's like my sister's got a period property, and she's done her front door, and it's jet black, and it's got the silver or chrome fittings, and it just looks. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what looks good as well is when you've got the traditional stone-built terrace townhouses all lined up, and you've got an Oxford blue, and then you've got a yellow, and then you've got red, and then you've got, you know, it just goes all the different colours of the doors. So it gives it individual characters, but it retains the original period of the properties without actually spoiling anything, and it looks nice.
Yeah, I do, and I like the colour thing. Do you know I've seen a few over the years, and it's like pillar box red. But as long as it's freshly done and it's, you know, it's not flaking and things, it could look really good and striking and stand out.
It has to be right. I mean, you wouldn't put pillar box red in the middle of the countryside.
No,
where most things are brown and you've got a red.
Yeah.
Because you've got to watch, because I mean, pillar box red ideally could, you know, in somebody's mind, if you get that wrong, could actually be danger.
Yeah, do you know? That could trigger that with somebody, that kind of colour. It can work, but obviously in the right circumstances. I find as well in countryside locations a lot like an olivey sagey green colour's quite nice.
That's good,
and that works quite well.
Pampas green. Pampas green will haunt me for the rest of my life. That's the old 1970s baths.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, it just makes you squirm when you see that. I'd still see it sometimes in some properties, Pampas green bathroom suites. It's like, wow, still lasting. I mean, when you think about that, that's 50 years. 50 years some people have still got these baths. That's unbelievable. That just shows you the resilience of the materials that they used at that time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm always surprised I still come across them sometimes.
So front doors. What are the things we've got to think about then when we look at the front doors and focus on the front doors? What can we do to get this KERB appeal up?
Yeah, so obviously we've got the exterior paints, and they all come in all sorts of colours and things. And do you know, it is that smouldering charcoaly grey colour that's really in just now. I think we're all going to turn around one day and be like, "Why is everything grey?" And then I'll have to do my whole house again.
I don't know about you, but every time people, when before grey was actually a thing, every time people mention I'm going to do my house grey, I just thought of Battleship Grey. And just thought, that's going to be horrible.
I know a lot of my house is grey.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it does, and I hope it stays for a while. But then you've also got joyous like sunshine.
Is that because your whole house is grey?
Yeah, not entirely, but most of it is. But yeah, you've also got really like nice joyous colours like sunshine yellow, and you've got the classic British tones, and you do have like poppy red, or I say pillar box, but poppy red and racing green, and you know, so there's a lot of mixtures of colours and the right
colour.
Yeah,
I can't bring myself to paint the mahogany woodwork I've got. Now, it's no dark mahogany. It's a real nice, it's really good quality natural wood. And I've had it for about 20 years, but I could never think of just like putting a lick of paint over that. It's like these
I'd be a bit hesitant as well if it's really good wood.
Yeah, I mean, the doors are beautiful. They're Houghton's, they're solid wood doors from 20 years ago. And they're the typical, you know, you've got the, I think it's the 9 panes up the top.
Yeah.
And then you've got the solid at bottom with the, you know,
panel to the bottom,
panel formation. But solid wood, you know, they're really good. And you know, so the bedroom doors and that as well are actually all solid wood, but the top is obviously replaced. It's not got glass. It's proper panel and well, molded. I wouldn't say panel because panel implies it's hollow. I would say molded, a proper molded door. I think that's I could never bring myself, I don't think, to ever paint over that. That's why when the boys had a go at painting, I thought, could you put paint on the blooming screen? You should have used masking tape.
Yeah, I would be hesitant with that as well. And what I would probably say is really good quality timber doors are kind of timeless. So probably just do like a clear varnish on them or something just to make them.
Yeah, or if you think it's no in keeping with the current times, you could maybe think about either stripping it and then revarnishing for a brighter door, or you could think about maybe putting a stain on it to bring it down and tone it down, and for the type of season that we're in, or maybe the type of style that we're in at this point in time for properties. I mean, the other one is if your front door's beyond saving with paint and it needs replaced, think about context. And I think it's important to stick with the original character to maintain the most authentic look in the beginning, because that's what people expect. It's the classic when you've got the double storm doors. The double doors that are most. You've got a big doorway, but you've got half doors and they open up. Well, they call them storm doors. That's what they're meant to be. I'm not very keen on calling it a storm door because it implies that there's going to be a huge but that's what they were originally, because we didn't have insulation, we didn't have proofing, windproofing and all the rest, and draft proofing, and we didn't have any of that in the very beginning. Most people just used a big old curtain that went on the back of their door, or they used, they basically wrapped up what was the cheap option? A pair of tights, and they used to put old socks in it as a draft excluder.
As a draft excluder.
And then that evolved into things like people would make wee sausage dogs and lions out of them.
Yeah.
The wee lion's head on it and all these different things. God, that takes me back. So that's why I would probably say if you're going to replace it, think about replacing it with the right sort of thing. It may cost for example, UPVC. It may cost a few £100 extra, possibly to get the right type of door or the right colour of door. But I probably think it's quite important, isn't it?
Yeah, and external doors can be quite expensive. I remember looking into doors myself for my own home, and I looked at composite doors. Needless to say, I didn't get one, or I needed two, because I thought I couldn't believe. And well, thankfully, I know joiners and I know contractors and things. I bought doors off I think it was Wix at the time. Is it Wix?
Yeah.
So I bought them for Wix, and they're solid doors, and I got the joiner to fit them and things. And do you know what? I done it all for an amazing cost.
How did you manage? This is just because I've always been perplexed by this. How did you manage to measure the door then to get the right size? Or were you lucky enough at the fact that your door was the right size?
Well,
the actual frame itself for your door. How
you do it for the internal, but then obviously we didn't put new frames and things on, so I just needed the actual door itself. I think the doors that we got to replace it were just slightly off, so they just needed planed. So luckily, off the rack, we were able to find them. Now, everybody's not going to have that, unfortunately. Doors come in all different sizes.
Because you have the houses that are traditionally about maybe 200 or 300 years old, and some of these doors you have to get bespoke to make them, because there's no way you're going to get a standard size for that.
Yeah, luckily enough, I mean, I'm in an ex-local authority house, and the doorways and things are pretty standard, so you will be able to get them off the rack and things like Wix and Screwfix and things.
It's when you go to the East Nuke and some of the other places that are actually maybe hundreds of years old, and you look at some of these houses and you look at the doorway and you look at the height of the door, and you think, were people traditionally small at that time?
Well, I know what it's like in the East Nuke to get through doorways and things, and I've knocked my head a few times because I'm 6'5", obviously. For people,
when you think about it, you kind of thought to yourself, people weren't that wee, surely, about 200 years ago. They were still tall people. So why? This is one for people out there. If anybody knows that, why did they do doors so small in terms of their height? All these hundreds of years ago. Why was everything so small? Yeah. Why was the window so small as well? You used to have just tiny wee windows in a room, and that was literally it for that whole room.
I think in the East Nuke, the small windows, I don't know, I might be incorrect, people could correct me, But I think if you're on the seafront and things, the windows were smaller because of the wind and the stuff.
I suppose that's a good point. Huh?
But I don't know about the small doorways, because the internal doorways as well.
You didn't exactly have draft proofing and double glazing at that time, did you? It was literally,
and
you were. Oh, I tell you what, as well. I think the nails hit the head, or the hammers hit the nail, or whatever it is. Because I now think I remember it's because the manufacture of glass was so difficult at that time.
Right. Okay.
Literally, they were producing wafer thin glass. Because I remember when I was a lad, I used to work with my dad. We used to clean some of the windows at some of these big manor houses at the back of East Nuke, out in the countryside, and literally you had to be very careful, because if you push too hard on that window, that pane, and they're all in the wee sectional panes, if you push too hard on that pane, it will break. It was literally like wafer thin, because the manufacture of glass wasn't that easy.
There was no thing. Double glazing wasn't even a thing, and window panes would have been very thin. Yeah.
Aye, I never thought like that. So it was all a point of cost and how easy it was to manufacture things like the windows and the doors themselves, I suppose. And I mean, they wouldn't have, you wouldn't really rock in and have a big jig. It'll just automatically cut it on a CNC machine. In terms of manufacturing methods, you would have to do everything by hand, I suppose. You'd have to get a craftsman in there.
But it'd be interesting to hear if anybody's watching, if people are familiar with East Nuke or live in East, obviously are in East Nuke, let us know why doorways are so small, and not just the exterior door, but internal as well,
and the windows as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so but let's get back to the front doors and then how important it is. Then I suppose it's just clean and polish a metal, any metal on the front door and the letterboxes. Other ones are you've got a brass letterbox, or you've got a brass door plate or something like that, or a handle or numbers. Then it's maybe time just to give it a bit of spruce up. Some people have, for example, in our Cooper office, we've got the big door plate. It has, the brass door plate has 97 Bonnygate written on it. Now, we never put that there. That's been there for years and years and years. So after a period of time, that just gets forgotten about, because you never really remember it. But it's really just a nice feature when somebody walks up to a property and actually sees that and sees it just pings.
You know, the leaving office as well has got one of the, and it's the double door, and it's got the big handles and the letterbox. And we were actually talking about it the other day, because all the leaves had blew in, and the door, I said, the door all needs wiped down. It's exactly what we're talking about. It needs all wiped down. And then I go trying to work out if the handles were brass or not, and whether we could clean them up. And because we were thinking that's what people see when they first come, and it needs to be nice and tidy.
Caledonian House had storm doors as well, and the previous owner ripped them off and put a big solid fire door in.
That big solid doors there,
Gutted, absolutely gutted. That would be absolutely fantastic on that type of property. But he just took it off and put a blank door on, and the blank door and the size of the frame and everything was so difficult. There's another thing as well. The double doors were put in because the hinges weren't able to cope with a bigger door. Just like you have these big massive windows, they usually put a split transom in, because you can only get a square window and a tilt and turn. If you get anything bigger, then the hinges go out completely, and after maybe 2 or 3 months, the window can't even shut right, because the locking mechanism can't actually line up anymore. So that causes real problems. Hence the reason why the doors were often as well bigger doorways were actually done with the double doors, the storm doors, in order to accommodate for that. But I wish these storm doors were back on that property, and I might resurrect that one day and actually put them back on, because I do think that's a natural feature of that property. I mean, that's Caledonian House is about 200 years old.
Yeah, it's a really old building. Yeah,
200 years, and it's that old. They never knew about cavity wall at that time. It's literally just two bricks stuck together. There's no cavity in between. They never knew that was a thing that you should do at that time. So that's how old that building is. But but I love it. It's a great property now, and that's why we've recently renovated the whole front and refurbished it. And we've got a stonemason in to get that all back to speed, and then repoint it and make sure everything's as it was before, just to maintain the buildings. So it's important. It's really important to maintain it, because it is prevention is better than cure. Because I'll tell you what, if you've got to sort something because it's damaged, the disruption is unbelievable. And then trying to get a contractor, yourself, even us, we have the challenges with that. Try to get a contractor to do this at this time of year is practically impossible.
Yeah,
especially a
contractors
roofer.
are really busy at this time of year.
Yeah, especially a roofer. There's no way a roofer's going to go up. Any sign of moss or wet or anything like that or damp, no going up.
No, it has
No
to.
touching
We
it.
have to wait until it's dry and safe to do so.
So literally, what's going to happen is your property is going to continually get battered by the elements, and water's still going to get in, and you can't do anything about it. That's why prevention is better than cure. So regular maintenance overall, all year round, is probably the most important thing to do. Now, finally, what I would say to you is never underestimate the power of a glowing porch lamp with a soft tone bulb. Not only for a warm and wonderful welcome, but also for viewers to find their way in darker evenings. Because it is getting darker. Literally, you're getting to about 4:30 now, and it's like, is it time to go to bed?
I know, I know. It's like it takes you a bit to get used to it. But you're definitely right about
I'm
having
getting to
that.
8 o'clock and looking outside and thinking, is it bedtime yet? Is it bedtime yet? And I'm like, I'm just almost putting up with it, and I'm just, it's like a marathon. I'll wait till about 9:30, because I know if I go to bed at 8 o'clock, I'll be up at 12.
You'll be up, but yeah.
Aye. So I'm waiting till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and just like almost like boredom.
But you're definitely right about having that glow and that light at the entrance door. Do you know, it was last time about this year, and I was walking the dog, and one of the houses close to where I live, and the woman's got it really nice. And in her front porch entrance bit, she's got a big a big candle lantern, and she's got the remote control candles in it, the flameless candles, but they light up. And see when it's just like that dusky, not dark but not light time, and she's got that all lit up. And I used to actually walk that way just to see it because it's that nice.
So my question to everybody out there, just before we're finishing off, is how does your KERB appeal actually compare to what we've just talked about? And it's the whole thing, you know, if you're looking to sell your home in Fife this autumn, then, you know, we'd love to help you maximise that value. But get us out before you start that journey. Get the facts, to get the right advice, to tell you what you should be doing and more importantly, what you shouldn't be doing, because that could end up costing you an absolute fortune. You'll never, ever recover in cost. Final words for you, Richard.
Yeah, I was just going to say, hopefully, if you're considering selling something that is in your plan, then hopefully what we spoke about this morning will make you think about, oh God, I never thought about my KERB appeal. And that's the things like the garden and the exterior and everything we've covered today. So any questions, then you could, of course, come to us.
Perfect.
And hopefully that's been helpful this morning. Thanks for letting me join, Jim.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on, Richard. And to everybody, bye-bye for now.
Bye.